Sadgurunath Maharaj ki Jai. Radhe Radhe, and once again, absolute joy to be with you all here. We are enjoying the wonderful play of words in Sanskritam, which can actually be interpreted as somebody cursing the Lord or somebody praising the Lord with the same set of slokas. That's the beauty of any literature, especially Sanskritam, where that which sounds like a curse or a chastisement can actually be seen as a praise or a stuti. And this type of a style of singing is called a ninda stuti. Ninda means I put down somebody or I chastise somebody. I actually, the gross word is abuse. And stuti is praise. And how can opposites sit in the same sloka? That's the miracle. That's the chamatkara. That's the wonder of these slokas. And you can find such things in many places in Bhagavatam. And some with the help of commentators, some naturally are ninda stutis. The famous ninda stuti we all know is in one of the 5 stutis, which is in the 10th canto, and it is called Brahmara Geetam. And Brahmara Geetam is when Krishna leaves all those gopis and gopas of Gokul to do his work, avatar karyam, work, because he has descended as a person to uphold dharma. Obviously, with so much love between the people of Gokula and Bhagavan suddenly just deciding to leave overnight, there would be a little bit of an anger which actually springs from love. It's called Pranaya Kalaham or Pranaya Kopam. And when Krishna sends an emissary in form of Uddhava Swami, then gopis speak to Uddhava in extremely coded language, a language coded by love, that when you see the basic meaning, it is called padartha, or the meaning of the words is appearing to be like an abuse or chastisement or putting down Bhagavan. But the import of the words, if you understand where it is coming from, is actually a very high-class praise of Bhagavan. It's called Nindastuti. And our Swamiji used to say that this Uddhava Swami, is the first cousin of Krishna, we already know that. And he was actually given scholarship to study with Brigaspati. In fact, he came and took him to his place and taught him everything for many reasons. First reason is extremely intelligent, and any professor would like to have an intelligent student who sort of enhances his image. And also, he's a treat for a professor to have a good student, isn't it? So that's one reason. And the more important reason is Brigaspati is also in the lineage of Bhagavata Dharma gurus. And possibly he wanted to prepare Uddhava Swami with proper intelligence and learning, etc. Because he has work for Krishna, or he has to work as serve Krishna. And serve he did, because he became the minister of Krishna. And people used to ask Uddhava Swami, Uddhava, you are doing an incredible job. And he says, what is that? He said, you are giving advice to Bhagavan himself, Jagat Guru. And Uddhava said, exactly. And he said, what do you mean? Who can ever give advice to Bhagavan Sri Krishna? And all I do is just mirror him. You should know how to mirror a boss, or a mirror a Bhagavan or a Guru, where you try to understand the tone, the tenor, and the actual words of a Guru. And generally, a Guru would always hide an answer in the question. He would never want to put you in a spot. So you need to be aware, attentive, and awake to listen to a Guru. And Bhagavan, being Jagat Guru, used to ask Uddhava, Uddhava, should I do this? And Uddhava said, never, Krishna. And they will say, Uddhava, don't you think we should do it? He said, absolutely, yes, Krishna, I'm fully with you. And that's how he used to give counsel. And people used to ask Uddhava Swami, are complete waste of salary for you. And for nothing you are getting the salary. Uddhava said, who cares about the salary? My greatest purpose or my greatest livelihood or life is Bhagavan when he is alone and he has nothing to do. Of course, he has everything to do, but physically, when he's just sitting idle, again within inverted commas, he looks at something, a wall or a curtain or a ceiling. What a waste of his grace which is oozing through his eyes. What a waste of love which is springing from his heart. And what a waste of divinity which is coming forth from his self. So I need to be there. And wherever he is looking, I will just stand there and receive his loving glances. That's what he said. But then one may ask, why spend so much time with Brigaspati to learn such deeper literature or Vedanta or Purana or Itihasa and all that? What Swamiji says, he learned all this for only one reason, because sometime in the future, he may have to go to Vrindavan and he may have to meet the gopis and you may have to listen to this song of a bumblebee, which is called Brahmara Gita. It is there in the 10th canto, 47th chapter. And for Uddhava to understand what gopis are talking, he needed to be an erudite scholar. And these gopis had not even got into a school to actually take cover for rains. We call that in Tamil, which means even accidentally they don't want to enter into a padashala. And those are the gopis, completely uneducated women of Gokulam, but the words they speak needs postdoc literary expert person to even understand a bit of what they are talking. See? And that's the power of prema. When there is love, it actually trumps libraries of knowledge or decades of experience. That little love in the heart of a person, and the person becomes a university for the whole world, because we are all here to somehow learn or somehow be that epitome of love, prema. And prema is complete only when it is directed towards divinity. Rest of all, prema is either conditional or it can be obstructed. And that's why prema has two characteristics. Our Kunti Devi tells these characteristics. You find that coming again and again. Ahaituki, apratihata. You see, and that love which is ahaituki, apratihata, or ahaituki means it is in English. It's let me be honest with you. Some words in Sanskritam you can't find a very good word in English. The closest word I found from one of those very good translators is disinterested love. Does it sound right to you? I mean, yes, it is perfectly right literally, but actually intuitively it sounds a little like an oxymoron. I'm not interested in something, but I love something. That sounds a little contra to each other. But then disinterested seems to be the closest to ahaituki. But we need to understand the word ahaituki better. And that word ahaituki means, hetu means reason. You see? So generally, we people are intelligent when we do things for a reason. If somebody does something, they don't even know why they are doing it. We have a special name for that. And there are reasons why we do stuff, and that's how sane people go on with their lives. But when it comes to love, there is no reason for that love in the sense. When I say the word reason, I look for what do I get out of it type of thought, right? So if I love Krishna, what do I get out of Krishna? Is that oxymoron. You see, when you love something, it is not what you get out of the person whom you love, then it's not love at all. It has a better term in the marketplace called business. So if I do something, what do I get? Then that's business, isn't it? So the business of love knows no business at all. Actually, love means the reverse, you see. And that's why it is difficult to understand. That's why it takes a tremendous grace for us to even taste it, or to see it flower, or to see it in action with Mahatmas or Bhagavan, etc. So that love knows no personal or selfish gain. And selfishness and love are actually opposites of each other. That's why we have a song, Swartha Lesha Rahita Gopi Prema Yatra Vartate, which means Swartha Lesha means even an iota, even an atom of selfishness, if it is there, it completely corrupts love. So it's absolutely like, what can I do for you type of a love. It's called ahaituki or ahaituki or karana rahita. There is no reason why I am loving something. Love is an end in itself. It does not actually look for what do I benefit out of it apart from intrinsically love itself. It's called Swayam Prayojana. Prayojana means what do I get out of it? Fruits. Love itself is Prayojana. In fact, Prayojana means the fruit, the final end. The love is end in itself. And that's the grandest goal we are all aspiring for. I know even if you look at it a little intuitively, little deeply, you'll understand. The reason why I work, reason why I exert, etc., is finally to taste that joy, to taste that love at some point of time in my life. I struggle hard and for all that. So that love's nature is aheituki, no hetu at all. And aheituki means I don't want to milk something from the person whom I love. You see. And I don't want to get something by hook or crook. I'm not expecting something, etc. What I expect is just love in return. And ahaituki, apratihata means this love knows no obstruction. Like a Ganga in spate, our Gangaji in spate. You try to block it with a few rocks, it is going to find ways and means to circumvent that rock. In fact, if there is no love, seeing a rock 1 kilometer ahead, that person will turn back, saying that I think there is an obstacle. It clearly shows that we don't understand the value, nor do we understand the joy of love, because even an apparent thought or a notion of obstacle can stop what I'm doing. But if my love knows no obstacles, in fact, look at Kunti Stuti. I've told this in some of the Kunti Stuti's lecture. In fact, she converted even, see, generally, when do people stop loving God? We had this case in one of the countries down below India, where a satsang person came very regularly. It's a real life story. I'm not making this up. They brought their family, they could sing well, and they were just lovely addition to our family there. And they were new, they had not had the darshan of Swamiji, etc. And they came regularly. And suddenly they stopped coming. And the reason why we asked, of course we asked, and they said, look here, my little boy was to sing in a competition and we expected him to win a prize. But the day of the competition, he had a sore throat. So we have lost our faith in God. You see, I don't blame them. But the point is, they miss the point totally. Love is not about how do I find ways and means to stop what I'm doing. Love means how do I convert even things which generally make people stop loving Bhagavan into enhancing my love more towards Bhagavan. And in that, Kunti Devi excels. You can't find a greater example for ahaituki apratihata than Kunti Devi. Not even Bhishmacharya. You see, again, as I told you, Bhishmacharya is emeritus professor of Dharma. Kunti Devi possibly didn't even enter a Dharma Patashala. But the way she has understood the highest Dharma of love, none of these erudite yogis or scholars can even come close. That's the power of love. That's the power of love. That's how love empowers people. That's how love strengthens people. Kunti Devi is saying that she had been through a lot in her life. You know that. And Mahabharata cannot be read. You see, that's so much of trouble this lady went through. You can't imagine that she was always on the edge. You see, she was always on the crossroads, always worrying about the health and safety and well-being of her children. She was in that state. And then she is telling in her stuti, this is the definition of what you read in the second chapter of the first canto, that ahaituki apratihata yayatma samprasidati. And her Kunti Stuti, she's speaking her heart out because she has no reason to lie. She's talking to Bhagavan. So she's opening her heart out and she says that Krishna, some people pray to you for eliminating their worries. Some people pray to you for enhancing their life's quality or quality of life. Some people pray for moksha. And some people are jnanis, so they just sing your names. And these are the four categories Krishna has told Arjuna in the battle. Arjuna, even if he's 90 years old, is a child to his mother. Every day he will come and tell everything what happened. How he picked a fight with Tim and all that stuff, you see, right from school days. So whether he's 90 or 100 years doesn't matter. He's always a child to his mother. So every day after the day's battle, he will give an account to Kunti Devi. And obviously, the first day of battle, he gave the account of 700 slokas to Kunti Devi. Na? I'm talking about Bhagavad Gita, of course. So Kunti Devi knows Bhagavad Gita. So she says, I heard you tell my son that there are 4 types of fortunate people. I think I belong to the 5th type. Maybe fortunate, maybe unfortunate, that I don't know. Neither am I praying for eradication of my troubles, nor am I praying for enhancing my quality of life by fulfilling desires. Neither am I praying for moksha, nor am I a jnani. I am asking you for something which you yourself didn't mention to my son. I am praying that you bless me with more and more troubles, is what she is saying. Dipada santuna sashvad tatra tatra jagat. And she gives a lovely reason for that. And she, of course, nobody relishes trouble, but she actually found merits even in trouble. And generally, when people are troubled, they would rather sacrifice devotion than strengthening themselves. And they would rather question Bhagavan than questioning their choices or questioning their decisions or questioning their intelligence. You see? And so here is Kunti Devi, apratihata. A life full of troubles did not deter her from loving Bhagavan. In fact, it only enhanced her love for Bhagavan more and more because she understood prema or love for Krishna is a parallel line to a day-to-day living of, a lot of challenges, troubles, sorrows, joys. It's there anyway. Nobody stops breathing because they are having a tough time today, or nobody stops eating when they have a tough week and all that. So for these people, since they understood the value of love and devotion, they don't mix it with day-to-day life. People who are not so bright spiritually, they mix these two, and those are the sentimental types. You see, when they walk and they get their head, little, they get the head stuck, or they find the head getting hurt because they didn't rise from their chair carefully. Immediately they think, I think I made a mistake, Krishna is punishing me or whatever. Or they go to the altar and say, Krishna, why are you punishing me? What did I do wrong? As if Krishna's business is only, knocking our head, you see. So here people tend to mix these two, which is not a very healthy practice if you ask me. Because one may be elated a day because the day when you offered a flower to Krishna was also the day when you got a rise in your factory or whatever. The reverse can also happen, you see. So to be on the safer side, not to lose something big for something very alpam, for something very small, it is best to be normal, rational, and also loving. It's possible. We can be rational in our day-to-day life and keep prema or devotion or satsang or all that separate. And we don't have to be sentimentally, charged, emotional people. And that's not what Bhakti is all about. And Kunti shows all these values beautifully. She has been through a lot, and she says that's life. Let it. Everybody has to face all this, and I won't actually attribute these positives and negatives to you, Krishna. That's my life. Let it be that. And what I want is more and more love, because I know its value, I know its greatness. So I don't want to mix these two like railway tracks. These two are parallel tracks. I don't want these two to come together. Parallel tracks means my day-to-day life, my so-called student life or a professional life or a family life, it's a track.
And my divine life of trying to enhance myself, enhance my inner excellence, enhance my inner light is a different track. So people who are not so bright mix these two tracks and tend to confuse, saying that I went to that temple, that's why I think I got this problem, etc. Come on. And then there are normal people who are very clear, I don't mix these two. This is separate, that is separate. Yes, I have to face all the challenges. Yes, I have things to improve. Yes, there are things I need to change emotionally, intellectually, mentally, physically. All that I'll do. Bhakti is separate for me. And then there is this Kunti Devi who has again mixed these two tracks. And she decided anything which happens to me in my life, I would convert it to make it, to induce me to go closer and closer to Bhagavan. She is an exception. Not all can be Kunti because Kunti is unique. And so she is saying, Krishna, what I have noticed is presents come in two packages. You see, one is a lovely packaged present where the packaging paper is glittery and it has the satin ribbon tied on it and it's so lovely to look at, etc. And then there is this dirtily packaged present I get day in and day out. And when I opened both the packages, I found more often than not, a dirtily packaged present seems to have more precious stuff inside than a flashily packaged present. You see, a flashily packaged present given by Bhagavan is all those lovely moments we have in our day-to-day life, like successes and people patting our back, or to put it in contemporary terms, getting 40 likes in a day for my Facebook post. I hope you don't not do this. And stuff like that, Instagram, and so many loves me. The world loves me because so many people like my post, and they like my post more than my friends' post. All those wonderful stuff we go through nowadays. And so here, that's the lovely packaged present. And when you open that present, it's fleeting, it's transient. And this dirtily packaged present comes in things like troubles I face, the challenges I face, and stuff like that. And she found that each time she faces a challenge, she takes the time to unwrap the package. You see, many times I've seen, pardon me, I know that you wouldn't mind me saying this. Some of you reject stuff summarily, you see, especially with food. So I'm just extended. Possibly it's only to do with cuisine, but anyway. So when I say this is a delicious food, you should try it. No, it doesn't look good. I don't want to even taste it. You see, which means you're losing an opportunity to taste something new and check it out. You see. And likewise, when the package is not beautifully, glittery and all that, generally people tend to say, no thanks. But then if you take the actual effort to unwrap the package, you find something precious there. And Kunti Devi says, see the strength of her character, see how beautifully she understood life. She has actually scored more than Bhagavan in this area. Bhagavan thought of only 4 types of devotees. Apparently, Kunti Devi seems to show a 5th type to Bhagavan, where she says, each time I have to or I need to face difficulties, you know what I've realized? Difficulties and challenges humble me. It's a humbling experience for me because I know that apart from my efforts, I also need something more for me to tide over such difficulties and crises in my life. And Krishna, I have noticed, each time I have a difficulty, each time I get a crisis, I find that I remember you very, very, very ardently, avidly in my heart. I remember you with tremendous intensity. And nothing could disturb me remembering you when I am in crisis. Now, she seems to think everybody having crisis would remember Bhagavan like that. The poor lady, she is coming from a very small little circle. Obviously, crisis would make people run away from Bhagavan more, but she saw a very different way of life. She had a very different take on life. And she said, Krishna, whenever I had crisis, I seem to actually remember you more. My thought seems to be more unwavering when I am in crisis. And generally you find it when we are in a very big crisis, typically a health crisis of somebody whom we love, then all these small little distractions, all these frivolous pastimes, they drop, isn't it? At that point of time, have you noticed that when we pray, we drop all those unnecessary waverings of mind, or the unnecessary vicissitudes of mind, and we are completely focused on our Bhagavan, our prayer. And our Kunti Devi says, that I have understood takes me closer to you. That humility, that remembering you with that one-pointedness, that I can't imagine during my so-called comfortable days, you see. So she says, not that I want troubles, but I want challenges in my life, vipadaha, which actually makes me remember you more. And that's not the prayer which we should do, but that's the perspective which we can borrow, isn't it? The perspective that troubles and challenges should not enervate me, but it should energize me. That when I have these troubles, etc., trying to catch hold of the divine feet of a guru or Bhagavan can be made very easy, rather than trying to sort of shirk away or trying to question Bhagavan. And I always found out that acceptance is the minimum mandatory condition for grace to flow. If we can't even accept what Bhagavan does, or if we can't even accept what is happening right now, and if we constantly question it, the typical way of question is, Krishna, why did it happen to me, etc. That's typically a very sign of weakness, because I'm not able to face it, and I'm not ready to face it, and so I'm questioning it, hoping that it disappears by questioning, hoping that I know better than Bhagavan, hoping that I can actually threaten Bhagavan into him showering his grace. All this is absolute stupidity. So here, first step is acceptance. Obviously, we deserve what happens to us. Use it only for yourself, not for others. What happens to me, I deserve. And if you start thinking what happens to that person deserves, then we become animals, or even worse, we become machines. So what needs to be used for me need not be used for others. This is a paradigm for me, that what I get right now, I do deserve, not as a victim or not as a, stuff which is like giving in, but for acceptance, so that I can see what can I do now. And if I think I don't deserve this, we are fighting the current issue we have, and we are not focusing on what do I do to get out of the issue. You see, so only for that perspective I'm telling that what we get on a very grand philosophical angle perspective, everything which happens to us we deserve. Nothing comes undeserving. Now Bhagavan has given us an intellect, he has given us a support system of family, friends, or satsang, etc., guru, and we use all these resources to find a way to come out, isn't it? That's exactly what Kunti Devi did. And she used her love for Bhagavan as a wonderful buffer for her to accept and gain the strength to do what needs to be done. Just because they were, relatives of Bhagavan, Draupadi was virtually Bhagavan's sister, and Arjuna, all those people were tremendous friends of Bhagavan. Do you think they had a very comfortable life? Do you think that they had no challenges at all? Do you think that they didn't have any low times in their life? Everybody has to go through that. Don't mix these two, is what Mahabharata tells us. They underwent their troubles. But the beauty with the devotion is, our Swamiji very beautifully says that, this what we deserve, what I said, call it karma or whatever, consequence of our past actions or whatever, or even chance, okay. That pushes us to the crossroads. It pushes us to the middle of the road. I don't know if anybody can even stop that. But if we have devotion or somehow won the favor of divinity, it can actually take us back inside, you see, from the road to the home. And the first step is when you are pushed to the road, or when a person is pushed to the road, the first step is not fight there, you see. The first step is to actually do the opposite. There is this wonderful calling and Ardhana Leela. It is in the 16th chapter of the 10th canto. In that, all the Nagapatnis very beautifully pray. I really like their opening line. the Nagapatnis are now mortally afraid that Krishna may finish off their husband, which is Kalinga, Kaliya. And they need to pray and intervene and beg Krishna to spare their husband. And the first words they do as aggrieved wives of Kaliya is Nyayo Hidanda. That what punishment you are giving to Kalinga is Nyayam, which means it is fair. Krishna, you are always fair, no doubt about it. The moment they said that, Krishna's heart melted. And immediately he stopped thumping his feet onto Kalinga's head harshly. Now he is now patting his head, saying that, very good. Generally, you pat with your hand. Krishna kartum akartum anyata kartum shaktaha. Instead of patting with his hand, he started patting with his feet and saying, very good, whatever poison you have inside you, you married into a very well-meaning, intelligent family. And so, chalo, bach gaya. So now, don't worry, your wife's prayer will protect you, don't worry. Some people are lucky that way. They are absolutely zero. But then they marry a very intelligent wife and she compensates for whatever lacuna the person has, isn't it? Likewise, this Nagapatni is compensated for his poison in his heart and in his tongue also. And they beautifully started with an Amrita Vachanam coming from a Nagapatni. Nyayam. What you did, Krishna, is 100% fair. And that's the height of acceptance when their husband's life is in danger, isn't it? That's how you pray. As our Swamiji says, this whole Bhagavatam is a book of prayers. It teaches us how to pray. It teaches us the science and art of prayers. It teaches us how to actually look at a situation, perspective, so that we don't. Our Kabir Das ji very beautifully uses a phrase, Vyaj do ke mulu ko baite. And this phrase comes from great Advaitic authors saying that in the interest of the interest, don't lose the capital. You have a deposit. There are some people who say, I'll give you 25% interest every year. And then you put your 1 million into that person. The person will give you 25% interest the first year, the remaining 75% company charges. You will take it and leave, you see. But then in the interest of the interest, you lost the capital, moolam. Likewise, our Kabir Das says that in the interest of the interest, don't lose the capital. And so the greatest interest for our soul is the devotion towards Bhagavan. And our Nagapatnis are showing us how to pray, especially in the time of crisis. You actually need the strength, you need that faith, you need that prayer even more than normal times. So here our Kunti Devi never fought with Bhagavan. One thing I really loved about the 10th canto is, you are a mother, 6 children are killed right before your eyes by your own brother, and the 7th child you needed to give up and give it to some other lady to carry, like a surrogate mother. It was given to a different lady called Rohini Devi in Gokulam. 8th child is Pakka Bhagavan. Bhagavan himself says, I am Bhagavan, I am Bhagavan, I am Bhagavan. What would a normal person ask him? Why did you create such a problem for me with 6 children killed before my eyes? Is it fair, Krishna? No. They didn't even think about it. They didn't even think of questioning Krishna, because that's what is a mark of a devotee. All the Gokulavasis, Pakka they know. They stopped Indra Yaga. Indra is the Lord of rains and he's pouring down rains. They know it. But not even one thought of questioning Bhagavan. Krishna, we have been doing it for donkey's years to, appease this fellow out there. And now you stopped and now we are in trouble. Tell us what to do. None of them. Everybody went to Krishna without even a resistive thought in their hearts. That's the standard of love. Ahaituki, apratihata. And that's the state of our Kunti Devi. And she's saying, Krishna, there is something called crisis and there is something called blessings. Generally, we use both of it in only normal worldly terms, which is perfectly right. I lost a job, crisis. I got a raise, which is a blessing. True. Nobody questions that. But then Kunti Devi says, If you undergo something which makes you forget Bhagavan, that's the crisis. If something happens to you which makes you come closer to a guru, or which gives you guru darshanam, or which makes guru talk to you, that's a blessing. You see, it's not even a blessing in disguise. It is a pakka sakshat blessing. It is a 100% verily a blessing, because all these ups and downs of getting something, losing something is a day-to-day affair. But to get something which is beyond the mundane, which is something which we get beyond the day-to-day, pluses and minus, is a permanent addition to our spiritual quotient. So when we get a chance to pray properly, when we get a chance to think about Bhagavan or a guru, or if it opens the door for me to be in the presence of a guru or a Bhagavan, etc., our Kunti Devi says, no matter what the cover of the package is, inside you have a diamond. The package is made of dirty newspaper and a very, coir thread. So what? That which is packaged inside is a diamond. At times, Bhagavan blesses us with a dirty packaging, but a diamond inside, in form of challenges, in form of setbacks, in form of crisis, etc. Unfortunately, we don't open the package. We shirk opening it, and we think, Krishna, you have cursed me with this. Krishna doesn't know curse at all. He is prema swarupa. We should know how to open the package and get the best out of a crisis. In America, there is a very wonderful principle people use, especially in political circles. They say, never let go a crisis waste. You see, let us get the best out of a crisis. Even a crisis is not shirked by politics. You see, that's the beauty of polity. You can get something out of a crisis also. That's the view of a politician typically. And that's the view of a devotee also. It's a crisis on the surface. How can I use it to enrich myself? You see, how can I use to make it to come close to Bhagavan? How can I use it to strengthen myself? And Bhagavan holds a flute made of bamboo. And I've read this somewhere in one of those articles which talks about the nature. And I hope it's true. That the bamboo has a very interesting way of growth. Of course, a tree or a plant has some favorable conditions. It also has unfavorable conditions, obviously. And they found in bamboo, this characteristic is very unique, that during favorable conditions, bamboo grows leaps and bounds. At times they say, I know it's an exaggeration, a poetic license, that you can actually see it grow. You can see it, you keep seeing, suddenly it starts growing. Okay. As I said, poetic license. But when the conditions are not favorable, and when the conditions, external conditions, climatic conditions for growth of bamboo is very challenging, the bamboo stands still, apparently. Botanists say, and again, I wish it is true, and I think it is true, you can check it out, that during adverse conditions, bamboos strengthen their roots literally. They tend to branch out on the roots, trying to find some ways and means to stand in a firmer ground, to find ways and means to prepare themselves to grow when the conditions are proper, to ensure their rooting network is perfect so that they can get more nutrients when the things are okay. So when favorable conditions exist, it grows externally. When adverse conditions are afflicted upon, it actually grows internally, which means under the soil, strengthening the roots. And we use the same terms, strengthening the roots. We can actually strengthen the roots of Bhakti during crisis. We can actually strengthen the roots of Bhakti during challenges. We can actually strengthen the roots of our faith during the so-called times of adversity, etc. And that's an option, that's a choice. It doesn't mean that whoever faces a lot of adversity would naturally be more devoted. There is no condition, there is no rule, there is no correlation, all that. It's up to us to make the best out of both the situations. And glittering present when it is given to us, Let us open the present and make it valuable by enhancing our gratitude and enhancing our positivity and reinforcing that, where we can truly feel grateful when things go right. And when things don't go the way we expected it to go, which is what we call as crisis, we have an option to unwrap this dirty newspaper package and find the diamond inside, which is that of remembering Bhagavan, strengthening ourselves, taking a deep look at ourselves, questioning our assumptions, or merely praying for this crisis to be met with strength, etc. Or prayers for me to tide over this crisis. You see? So that's how Kunti Devi is teaching us crisis is not crisis. So-called blessings are not blessings until it results in us strengthening our bond with Guru or Bhagavan. And a crisis or a blessing can be a crisis if it separates us or distances us from Satsanga or Bhagavan or Guru or benign grace. And that is what is the meaning of these two terms, which comes in the second chapter of the first canto. Ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Our Pauranika, you all know what Pauranika is by now. The person who tells the Purana, which is Ugrasravas in our case. Ugrasravas case, this is the highest dharma. Dharma means a lot of things, but for us, on a contemporary term, value, right? You see, values. The highest value for us as human beings to inculcate is, how do I find ways and means to enhance my love to the Guru or to Bhagavan in such a way that my extent of my ahaitukiness or apratihata-ness is improved. The extent to which my unconditional love to Bhagavan or Guru, the extent to which my selfless love for Bhagavan or Guru, the extent to which, how can I serve you Bhagavan type of a love can be enhanced, rather than how can you serve me Bhagavan, what can I take from you Bhagavan type of a desire. That's called kama. This is called prema. Kama means how do I get something from some person. That's desire. How do I be of service to Guru or Bhagavan or to Bhagavatam, etc. is what is called as prema. So here, ahaituki apratihata. No excuses, excuse-free bhakti, where we strengthen ourselves and understand, I'm going to do this because that's what I'm here for. That's the right thing to do. If I am goaded by the circumstances, then I am a slave to what is happening around me. But if I have decided this is the purpose, no matter what happens around me, I'm going to keep steadily going towards the purpose, then I am the master. Forget the gender here, it means the same. But generally, when we say master, it means that I am master of my senses, in the sense that I control it and I am in charge. You see? And so a slavish mentality would be finding way, allowing my external circumstances to default me in my journey towards the purpose. That's slavishness. But a masterly attitude would be to actually be clear that irrespective of my circumstances, how do I enhance my inner dharma? How do I enhance my inner value of devotion, of faith, of strength, of positivity, and of optimism? You see, that's the beauty with the bamboo, where when things are adverse, it doesn't complain saying that I'm not going to do anything. I don't have good air, I don't have good water, what do I do? It says I do something. When good water and air comes, I want to be even better. So I'm going to strengthen my roots. I'm going to grow in the ground. When things are all favorable, I'm going to use my growth in the ground to actually flourish and thrive. And since bamboo has this attitude, and Krishna is the most positive entity you can ever imagine. Have you ever seen Krishna with a long face? Have you ever seen Krishna with a very, dull clothes? Have you ever seen Krishna angry? there is one scene in 120 years, for 2 seconds he became angry. And that became the central point of a stuti by Bhishmacharya, you see. Because he wanted to show that he has taken the human role perfectly, so he has to show all these samples of human behavior. And that's the most beautiful, divinely positive entity is Krishna. And he thought those things which are around me should also be positive, which makes the best out of life. And so Krishna thought this bamboo is a perfect example of how a person should be. And so Bhagavan is holding bamboo and actually breathing his sweet tunes through bamboo to show to the world, be like my little Murali. Because when things are favorable, grow, thrive, flourish, and serve. When things are not favorable, don't just be broken. Don't just sag down. Actually, when things are not favorable, strengthen your roots. Learn from my beloved Murali. Learn from my Vamshi. And hence, he is playing all his tunes. He is pouring all his love into that Murali as Venu Geetam, because bamboo has this wonderful characteristics of strengthening the roots in adversity and thriving and flourishing during favorable situations. Likewise, let us strengthen our roots during times of challenges. Because remember, during normal times, you don't need much energy. It's actually during challenges that you need the energy. But see the paradox, see the irony, that when we need the energy the most, when we are challenged, we seem to be enervated. And that's the time when we need to take a deep breath and say, I'm not going to play this foolishly. I'm going to muster as much strength, as much spirit, as much energy I can, because that's what I need right now in the face of a challenge rather than a normal time. And Kunti Devi's one verse is an explanation of 2 words, which is a lifelong lovely value for all of us to cherish, for all of us to absorb and assimilate, and for all of us to thrive in our lovely journey of life. So that's the beauty of these 2 words which we see in our Bhagavatam, where he's saying, ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Love by nature, when you say I love God, or when you pray for love, remember this, that love is an end in itself. It is not a business. It does not expect something. And because it does not expect something, it can never be disappointed. And ahaituki apratihata means it knows no obstacle. It knows no excuse. So no matter rain or shine, it only grows by the day. When things are very challenging outside, it strengthens the root within. When things are favorable, it expresses it out in form of gratitude and grows. And that's the beauty of love. That is what is Venu. That's what our Venu Gopal is holding. And that's what our Kunti Devi lived all her life. To such an extent that even yogis could not do, she did. The moment she heard Krishna is no longer with us, that he has gone back to Golokam, she immediately followed Anayasam. 1 second, she just said Krishna and went to see Krishna there without resistance, without trouble, without any effort. That was the love she had for Krishna. How she had it was, she knew how to see life. Her perspective for life was perfect. And she understood that a crisis is a crisis only when we forget Bhagavan. And blessing is a blessing only when we remember Bhagavan. That external track of what happens around us merely is a stimulus. And Bhakti is a separate track altogether. And if at all we are very intelligent, we can use this track of day-to-day life to actually nourish and nurture the other track of Bhakti. Otherwise, it is better safe to keep these 2 tracks separate. Let what happens to our profit and loss statement of life, let it be there separately. And my focus or my purpose is to enhance my inner excellence by enhancing the love, by enhancing this prema for Bhagavan within me. And that's what is a recurrent theme in our Srimad Bhagavatam,
shown through many of those historic characters like Kunti Devi or Uddhava Swami, all the gopis, Bhishmacharya and the rest. And that's the beauty of our Bhagavatam, that as you keep reading it again and again and again, without you even knowing it, these values are imbibed. That's what yasyaha shravana matrena muktihi karatale sthita, which means just by listening or just by thinking about it, just by reading it, you don't have to take efforts to practice it. Bhagavatam has put it in such a way that it straight away goes and touches the heart and makes it an experience. And that's the fortune our Guru Maharaj has bestowed upon all of us. And we pray to our Guru Maharaj that he sustains us with greater vigor and love in this lovely journey of exploring this book of highest love, the book of highest happiness, the book of highest dharma called Srimad Bhagavatam. Sarvatra Govinda Nam Sankirtanam Govinda Govinda. Sadguru Maharaj ki Jai.